My sister mocked me as country at a millionaire's wedding. Funny, I'm 10x richer than all of them. Please stay with me as I tell my story. And please, do not forget to support our channel by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and sharing your loved ones. Your support means the world to us. Now to our story. MPO. When she raised her champagne glass and laughed, calling me just a country girl in borrowed boots. The whole table chuckled. I smiled. I didn't tell them I own more land than all of them combined. It happened at my sister's wedding. Everything was white marble, gold trim, and over the top. The kind of place where guests flew in on private jets just to show off. I wore a simple cream dress and my favorite pair of cowboy boots. I didn't care about fitting in. I came because, despite everything, she was still my sister. She had always looked down on me. Ever since we were kids, she'd mocked the way I spoke, the clothes I wore, the way I smelled like horses and fresh-cut hay. I never fought back. I just let her talk while I did my thing. When she went off to the city to chase money and status, I stayed back. I worked long days, saved every penny, and poured my heart into the land. What she didn't know was that over the years, I'd built an empire. Quietly. No flashy cars or social media posts. Just smart investments, good people, and steady growth. I bought up land, turned it into a network of sustainable farms, partnered with businesses who needed honest work done right. Eventually, I stopped counting money and started counting acres. At the wedding, she kept the jokes coming. "Hope your tractor didn't break down on the way," she said, loud enough for people to hear. Her friends laughed. I stayed quiet. What none of them knew was that the champagne they were drinking, bottled on my vineyard, the Wagyu beef on their plates, raised on my ranch, the resort where they were staying, I owned half the land it sat on. When the night ended, I said my goodbyes. She gave me a tight smile, still proud of the scene she'd made. I didn't say much. Just walked outside, where a quiet black helicopter waited. As the blades spun and lifted me above the glowing wedding lights, I looked down and thought, funny. She called me a bumpkin, but I own the world she's trying to impress. She may have won the crowd that night, but I didn't need their laughs. I had something better. Peace, pride, and a fortune built on dirt roads and grit. And that was more than any of them could say. She said I was too small town, so I bought the town. It was a casual insult, thrown over her shoulder as she hugged another guest. We hadn't seen each other in years, and that was the first thing she said to me. No hi, no you look great. Just a smirk and a comment like that. We used to be close. Back when we were little, we'd ride bikes through dusty roads, pick peaches in the summer, and chase fireflies at night. But by high school, things shifted. She got obsessed with leaving, said she was meant for more than tractors and diners. I didn't argue. I liked our quiet life. I liked the people, the rhythm of it all. But to her, that was a weakness. She left for college in the city, and I stayed. I worked with a friend restoring old buildings, one by one. People thought we were crazy. No one invests in dying towns. But we saw something different. We bought the abandoned shops, the empty lots, the rundown inn. Slowly, piece by piece, we built it back up. By the time she started showing up again, mostly for holidays, she never noticed the changes. She'd visit our parents, maybe grab a coffee, and always rush back to her high-rise life. She never asked what I did, just assumed I was still just around. At this wedding, held at a charming lakefront lodge that everyone adored, she kept introducing me like some awkward cousin she barely remembered. "This is my sister," she'd say. "She still lives here. It's cute, right?" What she didn't know was that the lodge, mine. The boutique shops down the street, mine. The art festival that brought half the guests to this weekend, I funded it. She spent the whole time showing off her rented designer shoes, while standing on land I own. When she gushed about how magical the town was, how she might even come back more often, I smiled. She still had no idea. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Because when you grow up being underestimated, you learn something powerful. Success is quiet. It's in the choices you make, the roots you grow, the empire you build without applause. She said I was too small town. Maybe I am. But now the town is mine. And everyone comes here to escape the world she was so desperate to join. Funny how things come. Full circle. She mocked my dress at the wedding. Too bad it was custom made by a designer she can't even afford. The moment I walked into the reception hall, I saw her eyes narrow. Her smirk was as familiar as the scent of overpriced perfume clinging to her designer gown. "You really wore that?" she said, not even trying to whisper. "Brave. Looks vintage." The people around her giggled, the way rich kids do when they think they've spotted something beneath them. I looked down at my dress. Simple lines, soft ivory silk, no sparkle, no label shouting for attention. It didn't need one. She didn't know it was made by Raphael DeVoe, the underground couture genius who only takes 6 private clients a year. No social media. No advertising, just pure, untraceable luxury. I'd been on his client list for 3 years, ever since he heard I quietly funded the clean water startup his sister worked for. But I didn't bother telling her any of that. Let her talk. She'd always played Queen Bee. High school, she was homecoming royalty. College, she pledged the most exclusive sorority. Her world had always been built on being seen. Designer logos, flashy parties, fake eyelashes, and even faker friendships. I took a different path. While she posted selfies, I built businesses. While she chased clout, I learned to buy silence. I'm on Forbes' quiet list. The people with money that doesn't shout, it moves. Startups, real estate, renewable energy. I own a portfolio most of her trust fund friends couldn't begin to manage. But to her, I'm still the weird sister who wore flats to prom and preferred books over brunch. During the wedding, she paraded her rented gown like it was dipped in gold. She bragged about the cost, the waitlist, the designer. I nodded. I didn't mention that designer once applied for a grant I fund. She didn't get it. At dinner, a woman leaned over and asked about my dress. It's breathtaking. Who designed it? I smiled. A friend, I said. That was enough. After the bouquet toss and endless rounds of photos, I found my coat and headed for the door. My sister caught up, still buzzing from champagne. Honestly, you clean up nice. Just wish you'd chosen something with a little flair, she said, motioning to my gown again. I just smiled, said goodnight, and slid into the black SUV waiting outside. One of many. Let her have her moment. She'll post 100 filtered photos from that night. And my dress? It'll never appear online, but it will hang in a private Parisian archive, right next to couture that her favorite designer can only dream of replicating. Because real elegance doesn't ask for attention. It commands it, quietly. They all laughed when I pulled up in my old truck, until they saw what was behind it. The wedding was held at a private vineyard, with valet parking and a guest list full of big names, or at least people who thought they were important. I rolled up in my 1994 pickup, paint faded, a little dust on the tires. I parked it myself. As I stepped out in worn jeans and boots, I caught the smirks. One guy nudged his friend and nodded toward my truck. I heard someone whisper, "Must be catering staff." I didn't correct them. I just walked past them toward the barn-turned ballroom, letting their chuckles fade behind me. What they didn't see, at first, was the rest of the line coming up the road. 3 black SUVs, silent and smooth. Then 2 Teslas, a Range Rover. Each car had someone from my team, my partners, and a couple of guys from security. The convoy stopped behind my old truck. No one laughed after that. Inside the wedding, I saw all the usual posturing. Loud bragging, name-dropping, startup talk. People trying to look like they were on top of the world, but I knew the truth. Half of them had pitched to me before. They just didn't recognize me out of a suit. That's how I like it. I run a quiet VC firm. We invest in things that last: agriculture, tech, clean energy, logistics. No flash, just steady wins. I fund companies before the public even hears their name. Some of the loudest guys in that room were still waiting to hear back from my assistant. One of them, wearing a $1,000 blazer and fake confidence, clinked his glass and said, "Hope someone teaches the guy with the truck how to park." The others laughed, too loud and too eager. Minutes later, he walked over, pretending not to notice me. "Hey man, what do you do?" I shrugged. "A little of everything." He kept pushing, name-dropping some companies I'd quietly backed. I let him keep talking. Eventually, someone whispered something in his ear. His face changed. His smile dropped. He muttered something and walked off. By the end of the night, a few guests were nicer. One even asked if we could talk business sometime. I just nodded, then left without saying much. Outside, I climbed back into my old truck. One of my security guys offered to drive. I said no. I like the feel of the wheel. It reminds me of where I came from. They all laughed when I pulled up. But the ones worth knowing? They weren't laughing when I left. She called me farm girl in front of the bride's family. Too bad I own the farm that supplies their organic line. It was during cocktail hour, just before dinner. I'd barely stepped into the garden when my cousin Sarah waved me over. She was standing with a small group that included the bride's parents and a few guests dressed like they walked out of a fashion magazine. Everyone had perfect hair, practiced smiles, and that kind of fake politeness you can spot from a mile away. "Oh my God," Sarah said, giving me a once-over. "You made it. Everyone, this is my cousin, the farm girl I told you about, straight from the barn." They laughed. Not mean exactly, but smug. The kind of laugh people do when they think they're better than you. I didn't flinch. I've heard worse. I was wearing a soft green dress, simple and clean. My boots were polished and my hands were calloused, yes, but I'd earned that. Every bit of it. I smiled and shook hands with the bride's mother, who was polite but clearly puzzled why I was there. Sarah kept going. She still lives out there in the middle of nowhere. I don't know how she does it. No Starbucks, no Wi-Fi, just dirt and cows, right? I laughed softly and sipped my drink. "Not quite," I said. Actually, our farm supplies a few big brands now. One of them's even featured here tonight, I think. That caught their attention. Oh, asked the bride's father, lifting an eyebrow. Yes, I said. Green Bloom Organics? Their new aloe lavender serum? We provide the herbs and raw ingredients. The bride's mom's eyes widened. That's my daughter's line. You work with them? I don't just work with them, I said gently. We partnered last year. My farm handles the full production of their organic ingredients. Lavender, aloe, calendula. We grow, harvest, and deliver all of it. There was a long pause. The bride herself, overhearing from a few steps away, rushed over. Wait, you're the supplier from Wildhaven Acres? I nodded. That's us. Her jaw dropped. Your lavender tested higher than anything else we tried. We based our entire new skincare formula on your crop. We're launching in Europe next month. Sarah went quiet. The laughter stopped. I didn't say much else. I didn't need to. Later that night, the bride pulled me aside to ask if I'd consider working on an exclusive blend. Her mom handed me her card. Sarah. She avoided eye contact the rest of the night. Funny thing is, I am a farm girl. I just happened to be the reason their $10,000 a month skincare line exists. Roots and all. I was mocked for my accent. Now it's trademarked and making me million. The first time someone laughed at how I talked, I was 12. We had moved to a bigger town for a while, and in school, a girl mimicked my southern drawl in front of the whole class. Said I sounded like I married my cousin and churned butter for fun. Everyone laughed. I didn't. Over the years, the teasing didn't stop. It followed me to college interviews, job applications, networking events. People assumed I was slow, simple, or just someone they didn't need to take seriously. I learned to smile and let them think what they wanted. I never changed the way I spoke. I knew better. That accent? It's my fingerprint. It's the voice of where I'm from. Front porches, sweet tea, stories passed down from folks who worked the land and built everything with their hands. It's real. And I leaned into it. I started a podcast. Nothing fancy. Just stories from my life, lessons learned on the farm, and down-home wisdom about money, business, and relationships. I didn't try to sound polished. I talked just like I always had. At first, only a few hundred people listened, then a few thousand. Then it exploded. Turns out, people were starving for something real. No filters, no fluff, just truth in a warm southern tone that made them feel like they were listening to a friend. Now that podcast is a full brand. I trademarked the name and even my signature catchphrases. I've got a best-selling book, a line of lifestyle products, and licensing deals with home and wellness companies. My voice, the very thing they mocked, is now worth millions. Last year, I got invited to speak at a major entrepreneur summit. Same crowd that used to roll their eyes when I opened my mouth. A few of them came up afterward, smiling wide, telling me they just love my brand and how they always knew I'd go far. I didn't call them out. I just thanked them and kept walking. The best part, I didn't have to change one bit to succeed. I didn't fake a new voice, hide my roots, or try to fit in. I stayed true to myself, and that became the brand everyone now wants a piece of. Funny how that works. They used to mock the way I spoke. Now they pay to hear every word. They made me sit at the kids' table, so I bought the venue. When I arrived at the wedding, everything looked perfect. String lights, fancy floral arrangements, a band playing soft jazz. It was the kind of event where everyone wore tailored suits and carefully practiced smiles. I didn't expect red carpet treatment, but I didn't expect to be led to a table with crayons and plastic cups either. Sorry, the planner whispered. We ran out of space. I looked around. There were plenty of empty seats at better tables. But I smiled and nodded. No need to argue. I took my seat between two teenagers glued to their phones and a kid eating crackers like they were gold. Across the room, my cousin, one of the bride's friends, grinned. She had always loved reminding people where they stood. High school. She was popular. I was the quiet one. College. She flaunted her degrees. I built my business in silence. They didn't know that I owned the entire property they were standing on. Not just the building, but the land, the vineyard behind it, and the event company that handled the weddings. I bought it 2 years ago under a holding company. Quietly. No one thought to ask. As I sipped my wine out of a paper cup, I made a quick call to the venue manager. Please make sure the vegan option is delivered to table 9, I said. Also, switch the dessert for the bride's father. He's allergic to hazelnuts. The manager thanked me and got to work. I watched the night unfold. They toasted to love. They danced. They smiled for photos. No one realized I was adjusting things behind the scenes, fixing small mistakes, comping extra bottles of wine, making sure the bride's stressed-out mom had a quiet room to rest in. Toward the end of the night, my cousin stopped by my table, holding her glass high. You look cozy back here, she said, laughing. Maybe next time you'll dress up enough for the grown-up tables. I raised my plastic cup and smiled. Maybe. The next morning, the bride posted a thank you message online. She raved about how the venue had gone above and beyond, how the staff had handled everything perfectly, how it was the wedding of her dreams. I didn't comment. I just scrolled past, sipping coffee in the office on the top floor of the venue's main building. They made me sit at the kids' table, so I made sure the whole night went off without a hitch. Because when you own the place, every table is yours. She rolled her eyes when I said I'm self-employed. Now her husband is begging me for a job. We were at a family get-together, one of those backyard BBQs where everyone's trying to outdo each other. New cars in the driveway, talk of promotions, beach homes, and designer clothes. I kept quiet, sipping my lemonade and enjoying the sun. Eventually, someone asked what I did. I said, I'm self-employed. My cousin Jenna raised her perfectly shaped eyebrows and let out a soft laugh. Oh, she said, one of those. Must be nice working in pajamas. The others chuckled. I smiled. I've heard it before. They don't know that I started out with nothing but a laptop and a folding table. That I spent nights learning, failing, and rebuilding. I didn't post my wins. I didn't show off. I just worked. Over time, I built a business that grew from freelance gigs into a full agency. Then I launched 2 software tools. One helps small businesses manage their inventory. The other is used by a few big names in logistics. Slowly, without fanfare, I became someone people rely on, even if they don't know it. At the barbecue, Jenna's husband, Rob, bragged about his 6-figure salary at a marketing firm. He called me the laptop guy. I just smiled. A year later, things changed. Rob got laid off when his company downsized. Jenna stopped posting vacation photos. Suddenly, self-employment didn't sound so funny. One morning, I got an email. Subject, catching up? It was Rob. He wanted to talk about possible opportunities and mentioned how impressed he was with what I'd built over the years. He asked if I had room on my team or knew of anyone hiring. I did have room. I was hiring for someone with his exact background, but I didn't respond right away. I thought about all the times they laughed, dismissed, and looked right through me. A week later, I replied. I was polite. I invited him to send his resume. I knew he would. I also knew I wouldn't treat him how he treated me, because business isn't personal, but it's never blind. They all assumed self-employed meant small, temporary, plan B. But I had quietly built something solid, something theirs couldn't touch. Jenna rolled her eyes when I said I worked for myself. Now, her husband is hoping I'll give him a shot. Funny how the table always turns, especially when you build it yourself. She said I looked out of place. Then her husband recognized me from Bloomberg. It was at a formal dinner before the wedding. One of those high society, black tie events with too much perfume in the air and way too many forks at each place setting. I showed up in a simple navy suit. Classic, quiet, no frills. My sister saw me walk in, gave me a once-over and smirked. Did you miss the dress code? She whispered, loud enough for her table to hear. A few of her friends chuckled. She leaned in closer. Try not to embarrass me tonight. We weren't always like this. But ever since she married into money, she'd changed. Every gathering became a chance to show off. If you didn't have a luxury brand name stamped on your shoes, you were a nobody. So I let her talk. I sat at my assigned table and smiled through the small talk. No one really paid me any attention. I was just the other sibling, the quiet one, the one who never quite fit in. Then, during dessert, her husband, someone I've barely spoken to, kept glancing my way. He squinted like he was trying to place me. Finally, he leaned across the table and said, Sorry, but were you in Bloomberg last month? I nodded. Yeah, they did a feature on my company. He blinked. Wait, you're the founder of Viridian Data Lab. I smiled again. That's me. The whole table froze. You could feel the mood shift. Her husband sat back, stunned. That article was everywhere. You're the guy who built that AI platform for logistics, right? You're the one who turned a garage project into a $400 million valuation. I shrugged. It's been a good few years. All of a sudden, I wasn't invisible. Her friends leaned in. Someone asked for a business card. Another asked if I was open to investors. I answered politely, but I kept it brief. Across the room, I saw my sister watching. Her face had gone pale. Her confident smile had disappeared. She looked unsettled. She walked over a few minutes later, trying to play it off. You never told me you were doing all that. I looked at her calmly. You never asked. That was the last thing I said to her that night. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I never cared about being the loudest in the room. I just did the work, stayed focused, and built something real. She said I looked out of place. Turns out, I was exactly where I belonged. They just didn't recognize it yet.